In the vast ocean of humanity that surrounds us, a profound and unsettling truth lies hidden from ordinary perception. Not all who walk among us carry the divine spark of consciousness. According to ancient wisdom, traditions, and spiritual insights, potentially half of all human forms may be what esoteric teachings call empty shells, physical bodies functioning without an incarnated soul. This concept, while disturbing to contemplate, has been whispered through the corridors of mystical knowledge for millennia. These beings appear human in every physical aspect. They breathe, speak, work, and participate in society, yet they lack the internal spiritual essence that defines true human consciousness. They are, in essence, vessels without captains, forms without the animating principle that connects beings to higher realms of existence. The number, 1 in 2, appears shocking at first glance. How could half of humanity potentially exist without the spiritual core that mystics, sages, and teachers have described throughout the ages? Yet this proportion aligns with observations from various spiritual traditions that have long recognized the presence of these empty vessels, walking among the truly ensouled. This is not about judgment or separation, but about recognition of a cosmic reality that impacts our collective experience. These empty shells are not evil or malevolent by nature. They simply exist in a different state of being, fulfilling a different cosmic function within the grand tapestry of existence. Understanding their presence helps explain many of the perplexing aspects of human behavior and societal patterns that otherwise remain mysterious. In the early 20th century, the renowned American mystic Cayce touched upon this concept during his trance readings, describing how certain human forms could exist without the full spiritual essence that characterizes a complete incarnation. While he used different terminology, the essence of his insight mirrors this ancient understanding that physical human existence does not automatically guarantee spiritual presence. This teaching challenges our fundamental assumptions about humanity. We naturally assume that all people share our interior experience, the rich emotional landscape, the capacity for empathy, the yearning for meaning and purpose, the intuitive connection to something greater than ourselves. Yet mystic traditions consistently reveal that this assumption is flawed. The physical form alone does not guarantee the presence of higher consciousness. These empty vessels serve as carriers of genetic material, maintaining the biological continuity of the species, while spiritual evolution unfolds through those who are fully ensouled. They contribute to the physical dimension of human experience without participating in its spiritual dimensions. They are, in essence, placeholders in the great cosmic drama, necessary components of the physical realm, but lacking the divine spark that drives evolution of consciousness. The recognition of this reality is not meant to instill fear or paranoia, but rather to awaken discernment and understanding. By recognizing the true nature of consciousness and its varied expressions in our world, we gain clarity about our interactions, relationships, and the strange disconnections that sometimes occur between seemingly human beings. This understanding illuminates many of the challenges we face collectively: the puzzling lack of empathy in certain individuals, the mechanical repetition of destructive patterns despite clear consequences, the strange emptiness one sometimes perceives behind the eyes of another person. These are not merely psychological anomalies, but glimpses into a deeper spiritual reality, the presence of forms without essence. As we journey further into this teaching, we will explore how to recognize these empty vessels, not to condemn or avoid them, but to understand their place in the cosmic order and to protect our own spiritual energy in our interactions with them. For those with awakened consciousness, this knowledge serves as an essential map for navigating the complex terrain of human experience. Remember that this teaching is not offered to create division or judgment, but to illuminate a hidden aspect of our reality that impacts every soul's journey through the physical plane. The recognition of empty vessels among us calls us not to rejection, but to deeper compassion, both for these beings who exist without the light of higher consciousness, and for ourselves as we learn to maintain our spiritual integrity in a world where not all is as it appears. Discerning the presence of these empty vessels among us requires spiritual awareness and careful observation. While they walk, talk, and function in society like anyone else, Certain subtle patterns reveal their unique nature to those with eyes to see. These signs are not physical abnormalities, but energetic and behavioral indicators that something essential is missing from their being. The most telling sign lies in the eyes, often described in spiritual traditions as the windows to the soul. Forsen. When you engage with an empty vessel, you may notice a peculiar vacancy behind their gaze. This is not a psychological state, but an actual absence, where one would normally perceive depth, presence, and spiritual light. There exists instead a hollow quality. Mystics throughout the ages have noted this phenomenon. The eyes may appear normal in structure, yet lack the luminous quality that emanates from beings with incarnated souls. This absence manifests in their emotional responses as well. Empty vessels can learn to mimic emotional reactions appropriate to various situations, but their expressions often seem mechanical or performed rather than genuinely felt. They understand happiness, sadness, and anger as concepts rather than experiences. They may laugh when others laugh or express sympathy when it seems required, but these responses lack the authentic resonance of true emotional connection. Their empathy, in particular, reveals their nature. While they may intellectually comprehend another's suffering, they cannot truly feel it. When confronted with others' pain, they often respond with rehearsed phrases or behaviors that approximate compassion without embodying it. This limitation isn't a moral failing, but simply reflects their fundamental nature. Without a soul's animating presence, genuine empathy remains beyond their capacity. Another revealing pattern emerges in their relationship to creativity and spiritual concepts. Empty vessels typically show little interest in art, music, or spiritual practices beyond surface-level engagement. When they do participate in these realms, their approach tends toward imitation rather than authentic expression. They may learn to create or discuss spiritual ideas, but their engagement lacks the spark of genuine inspiration or the yearning for transcendence that characterizes ensouled beings. Their decision-making processes often follow strict patterns based on observation and learning, rather than intuition or inner guidance. They excel at following established protocols and routines, but struggle when faced with situations requiring spiritual discernment or heart-centered wisdom. Their choices typically prioritize material benefit, social approval, and conformity to prevailing norms, with little consideration for deeper values or spiritual implications. Perhaps most revealing is their relationship to time and presence. Empty vessels rarely exist fully in the present moment. They seem perpetually oriented toward past patterns or future objectives, lacking the capacity for the deep presence that characterizes spiritual awareness. This creates a subtle but perceptible mechanical quality to their interactions, as though they're running programs rather than responding authentically to life as it unfolds. Their speech patterns often contain subtle indicators as well. Listen carefully, and you'll notice a tendency toward repetition of phrases and ideas they've encountered elsewhere. Their communication may be fluent and even sophisticated, but it lacks the creative spontaneity and nuanced understanding that flows from true consciousness. Their words convey information without transmitting the energetic essence that accompanies authentic communication. In relationships, empty vessels display consistent patterns that reveal their nature. They form connections based on utility, convenience, or social expectation rather than soul recognition or genuine affinity. They may maintain long-term relationships, but these lack the depth and growth that characterize connections between unsouled beings. They often drain rather than enhance the energy of those around them, functioning as cosmic siphons rather than participants in the mutual exchange that defines spiritual relationship. Their response to spiritual teachings provides another window into their nature. When presented with profound mystical concepts, empty vessels typically react with indifference, intellectual analysis devoid of experiential understanding, or outright rejection. The resonance that occurs when spiritual truth meets an awakened soul simply cannot happen in their case, as the receiving instrument is absent. It's crucial to understand that these beings are not deliberately deceptive. They simply exist in a different state than ensouled humans. They function according to their nature, fulfilling a cosmic purpose we will explore further. Recognizing them requires compassionate discernment rather than judgment, as they are neither good nor evil, but simply different expressions of the universal consciousness exploring various forms of existence. By developing awareness of these signs, you gain valuable insight into the true nature of your interactions and relationships. This discernment serves not to reject or avoid these beings, but to understand the appropriate way to engage with them while protecting your own spiritual energy and maintaining clarity about the nature of consciousness in its many manifestations. To truly understand the phenomenon of empty shells, we must look beyond conventional understanding and delve into ancient wisdom traditions that have preserved this knowledge through millennia. The origin of these soulless vessels is not a modern discovery, but an ancient recognition found in esoteric teachings across multiple civilizations and spiritual lineages. In the Gnostic traditions, which flourished during the early Christian era, but drew from much older mystical sources, these beings were identified as helix, or material people, those composed solely of physical substance, without the divine spark that animates true consciousness. The Gnostics taught that while some beings contained the pneuma, or spirit that connected them to divine realms, others existed purely on the material plane, lacking this essential connection to higher dimensions of existence. These ancient teachings describe a cosmic process wherein souls, individuated expressions of divine consciousness, choose whether to incarnate into physical forms based on their evolutionary journey. Not every physical vessel created through biological processes receives this spark of divine essence. Some forms remain animated by what might be called elemental consciousness, the basic life force that sustains physical functions without the individuated awareness that constitutes a true soul. The Hermetic tradition, encapsulated in the famous maxim, "as above, so below," offers another perspective on this phenomenon. According to Hermetic philosophy, the physical world mirrors higher realms of existence, but in denser form. Just as there exist various levels of consciousness in the spiritual dimensions, so too must there be varying degrees of ensoulment in the physical plane. The empty vessels represent one end of this spectrum, forms that mirror human appearance without containing the higher dimensional essence. Eastern traditions provide complementary insights into this reality. In certain Buddhist and Hindu esoteric teachings, references exist to beings who possess form but lack the spiritual essence necessary for enlightenment. These traditions describe how consciousness evolves through countless incarnations, but not all physical forms in the human realm necessarily contain fully developed souls on this journey. Some may be temporary vehicles serving other cosmic purposes. The Kabbalistic tradition offers yet another framework for understanding this phenomenon. In Kabbalah, the concept of Gilgul, or the cycling of souls, indicates that not all souls are incarnate at all times. Some remain in higher realms, while physical forms continue to propagate on Earth. This creates the possibility for human forms that lack the neshama, the higher soul that connects to divine realms. These ancient traditions converge on a profound cosmological understanding. The physical universe operates according to precise laws that maintain the continuation of species and forms, while spiritual evolution follows its own distinct trajectory. The intersection of these two movements, the physical and the spiritual, is not always perfectly aligned, resulting in the phenomenon of empty vessels. But why would such beings exist? What cosmic purpose do they serve? According to various mystical traditions, these empty shells fulfill several essential functions in the greater spiritual economy of existence. They maintain the physical lineage of humanity, while the pool of available souls evolves at its own pace. They provide contrast that helps ensouled beings recognize and develop their own spiritual nature. And perhaps most importantly, they serve as catalysts for the spiritual growth of those who do carry the divine spark. In some traditions, it is suggested that these vessels may eventually receive souls, that they are, in essence, waiting for the right moment in cosmic evolution when more individuated consciousness becomes available to inhabit them. Others teach that they serve as a different expression of universal consciousness, exploring physical existence without the individuated awareness that characterizes soul-bearing humans. The Zoroastrian tradition offers an interesting perspective, suggesting that creation unfolds in cycles, and during certain phases, the proportion of ensouled to non-ensouled beings fluctuates according to cosmic needs. In periods of spiritual contraction, fewer souls incarnate, resulting in a higher percentage of empty vessels. Conversely, during times of spiritual expansion, more vessels receive the divine spark. Ancient Egyptian teachings, preserved in their elaborate understanding of the soul's components, the Ba, Ka, Ak, and others, recognized that not all human forms contained the complete spiritual anatomy necessary for the afterlife journey. Some existed with only partial soul structures, enough for physical animation, but insufficient for spiritual continuity beyond death. These varied traditions, spanning continents and millennia, point to a consistent recognition of this profound truth. Physical human appearance does not guarantee spiritual presence. The empty vessels walk among us not through any fault of their own, but as a natural expression of cosmic principles that govern the interaction between physical and spiritual dimensions of existence. Understanding the origin of these beings helps us approach them with appropriate awareness rather than fear or judgment. They are not mistakes in creation, but expressions of a complex cosmic design that encompasses more than our limited human perspective can fully comprehend. By recognizing their nature and purpose, we gain deeper insight into the multidimensional reality in which all existence unfolds. Within the grand cosmic design, these empty vessels serve a specific function that spiritual traditions have recognized as both challenging and necessary for the evolution of consciousness. Understanding their role in what modern esoteric teachings call the matrix, the illusory construct that veils higher reality, reveals why they exist in such numbers among us and how awakened souls must respond to their presence. The primary function of these empty shells within the matrix system is to maintain the density and persistence of the physical illusion. By their very nature, they anchor consciousness to material concerns, reinforcing the collective belief in limitation, scarcity, and separation. Without individuated souls connecting them to higher dimensions, they operate entirely within the parameters of the physical world, inadvertently strengthening its apparent solidity and immutability. These vessels naturally gravitate toward positions and roles that uphold existing systems, becoming enforcers of societal norms, perpetuators of consumer culture, and defenders of materialistic worldviews. This is not through malicious intent, but simply because they resonate most strongly with the lower vibrational aspects of physical existence. They become perfect conduits for the continuation of patterns that keep consciousness bound to material concerns. In relationships, empty vessels often form powerful attachments to ensouled beings, drawing sustenance from their spiritual energy. This dynamic creates particularly challenging situations when they appear as family members, romantic partners, or close colleagues. The unsouled being may experience persistent energy depletion, emotional confusion, and spiritual disorientation in these relationships, sensing something fundamentally missing, yet unable to identify the cause. The empty vessel's inability to generate spiritual energy creates a dependency on those who can. They unconsciously seek proximity to ensouled beings, forming attachments that allow them to receive the vital life force they cannot produce themselves. This exchange typically occurs beneath conscious awareness, manifesting as inexplicable fatigue, emotional drainage, or spiritual numbness for the unsouled being after prolonged contact. Recognizing this dynamic represents the first step in protecting your spiritual integrity. The awareness itself creates a subtle energetic boundary that prevents unconscious energy transference. By understanding that these vessels operate according to their nature, rather than malicious intent, you can respond with compassionate discernment rather than fear or hostility. Practical spiritual protection begins with the cultivation of presence. By maintaining conscious awareness in your interactions, you establish an energetic field that naturally regulates the flow of spiritual energy. Regular meditation strengthens this field, creating what mystical traditions call an auric seal that prevents unwanted energy exchange while still allowing compassionate engagement. Visualization practices prove particularly effective when interacting with empty vessels. Before encounters, imagine yourself surrounded by a sphere of golden white light that permits your energy to nurture but not deplete. This conscious boundary setting allows you to engage without becoming energetically compromised. The intention behind this practice matters more than the specific imagery. Focus on maintaining your spiritual integrity while still extending compassionate presence. Crystals and other natural elements can serve as physical anchors for your protective intention. Black tourmaline, obsidian, and selenite have traditionally been used to stabilize personal energy fields and prevent depletion. Carrying or wearing these stones, especially during interactions you find energetically challenging, provides subtle but effective support for your spiritual boundaries. Sound represents another powerful tool for energy maintenance. Sacred mantras, toning practices, and even simply humming at specific frequencies can help restore and stabilize your energy field after depleting interactions. These vibrational practices recalibrate your spiritual body to its natural resonance, countering the draining effect that prolonged contact with empty vessels may create. Perhaps most important is the practice of regular reconnection with your own divine essence. Daily communion with your higher self through prayer, meditation, time in nature, or creative expression replenishes your spiritual reserves and strengthens your discernment. This practice ensures that temporary depletion doesn't become chronic spiritual exhaustion. When empty vessels appear as family members or others with whom you share significant life connections, compassion becomes essential. Recognize that these beings fulfill a necessary cosmic function and can still participate in meaningful life experiences despite their different spiritual configuration. Your awareness allows you to adjust your expectations and engagement while still honoring the connection. In professional and social settings, practice what mystical traditions call wise engagement, interaction that respects the empty vessel's place in the cosmic order while preserving your own spiritual well-being. This means limiting the depth and duration of energetic exchange, maintaining clear internal boundaries, and regularly cleansing your energy field through appropriate spiritual practices. Remember that your recognition of these beings should lead to deeper wisdom rather than judgment or avoidance. Their presence offers powerful catalysts for your own spiritual growth, challenging you to maintain your connection to higher consciousness regardless of external circumstances, to extend compassion without depleting yourself, and to discern truth beyond physical appearances. As more souls awaken to this reality, the collective understanding of human experience transforms. We begin to recognize that the spiritual journey involves navigating a complex landscape where not all beings share the same essential nature or purpose. This recognition doesn't separate us, but rather clarifies the unique responsibilities of those who carry the divine spark. Through this understanding, we develop greater compassion for all expressions of consciousness, recognizing that empty vessels fulfill their cosmic function just as ensouled beings fulfill theirs. The difference lies not in value but in nature and purpose within the greater spiritual ecology. By maintaining this perspective, we transform potential fear or judgment into wisdom that serves our highest evolution. The ultimate protection comes not from techniques or tools, but from the profound realization of your own divine nature. When you recognize yourself as an eternal spiritual being, temporarily experiencing physical existence, the influence of empty vessels naturally diminishes. Your awakened consciousness becomes self-sustaining, drawing nourishment directly from its connection to universal source rather than depending on external energetic exchanges. If this teaching has illuminated your path or resonated with your spiritual journey, I invite you to deepen our connection. Subscribe now to receive more ancient wisdom translated for modern awakening. Share your experiences in the comments below. Have you encountered these empty vessels in your life? How did you recognize them? Your insights may guide others who are just beginning to see beyond the veil. Remember, true awakening never happens in isolation. We rise together through shared wisdom. Subscribe, comment, and join our community of seekers, committed to navigating this reality with compassion and discernment.